Welcome to the Mind Spark, bringing you the latest news from around the world. There's a new uneasy quiet in towns like Buffalo, New York, and Bellingham, Washington. Once, these streets thrived on a blend of American and Canadian visitors. License plates from Ontario and British Columbia were everywhere. Now, on July 11th, 2025, those streets are empty, parking lots deserted. This isn't the aftermath of a natural disaster, but the result of a grassroots Canadian boycott. The US and Canada, once seamless neighbors, are now divided by a political rift that's hit home for millions. Canadians, angered by new US trade and travel policies, are staying away, and the economic fallout for 10 US border states is catastrophic. This isn't a government embargo. It's a people's movement, organized online and fueled by national pride. What started as a hashtag has become a force, shaking the foundations of American border towns. Tonight we'll take you inside this crisis, its origins, its human cost, and the political storm it's unleashed. We'll hear from business owners watching their livelihoods vanish, and Canadians who feel they had no choice. This is more than an economic story. It's about identity, respect, and the fragile trust between neighbors. Welcome to the new reality on the US-Canada border. Not long ago, the US-Canada border was a symbol of friendship and prosperity. Canadians routinely crossed south for cheaper gas, groceries, and shopping, fueling local economies. Day trips to Plattsburgh or Bellingham were family traditions woven into daily life. US border towns catered to Canadians, advertising in Canadian media and stocking their favorites. The relationship was symbiotic, two economies feeding each other, creating jobs and funding public services. Tourism thrived, with Canadians filling hotels, restaurants, and attractions from Maine to Montana. Before the boycott, Canadians spent over $19 billion annually in the US, much of it in border states. In some towns, Canadians made up half of all retail sales. This spending was the backbone of local economies. Tens of thousands of jobs and vital public services depended on this cross-border flow. For decades, no one imagined this economic engine could ever stall. But now, the flow has stopped, and the consequences are everywhere. The harmony ended abruptly in late 2024. The US passed the Secure American Borders and Fair Trade Act, imposing a $75 fee on every Canadian vehicle entering the country. Officially, it was for security, but in Canada, it felt like an insult. US politicians' dismissive rhetoric only deepened the wound, turning a policy dispute into a matter of national pride. Canadians responded swiftly, not through government, but through grassroots action. The hashtag #BoycottUsBorder States exploded online, and soon millions pledged to keep their money at home. Buy Canadian became a patriotic rallying cry. News outlets amplified the movement, and local businesses saw a surge in Canadian customers. By February 2025, border traffic had plummeted. The boycott was no longer a threat, it was a reality, and American towns felt the chill. A single policy had ignited an economic firestorm. The numbers are staggering. Retail sales in the 10 hardest hit states have dropped by 25% since the boycott began, up to 60% in some border towns. In Whatcom County, Washington, a $400 million shortfall is projected, with thousands of jobs lost. Buffalo, New York, faces a 30% drop in sales tax revenue, threatening public services and forcing tough budget choices. The pain ripples outward. Gas stations, hotels, restaurants, and grocery stores are all suffering. The economic ecosystem, built on Canadian spending, is collapsing. The boycott has exposed just how dependent these communities were on their northern neighbors. Now, with the flow of Canadian dollars cut off, towns face an uncertain and painful future. Behind the numbers are real people facing hardship. Sarah Jenkins, who owns a boutique in Plattsburgh, watched her business empty out as Canadian customers vanished. She's let go of long-time employees and drained her savings, unsure how much longer she can hold on. In Detroit, grocery manager Mike Kozari used to sell pallets of dairy to Canadians. Now he's throwing out expired products and cutting staff hours. The psychological toll is immense. Business owners feel abandoned, even as they understand the boycott's roots. Community leaders report rising demand for mental health services as families grapple with lost jobs and uncertainty. Teenagers who relied on part-time work have seen those opportunities disappear. A high school senior in Bellingham lost her job and her college savings plan. It feels like our town is dying, she says. The crisis isn't just economic, it's emotional, casting a long shadow over the future. The sense of community is fraying, and hope is in short supply. The boycott is destroying more than businesses. It's eroding the spirit of these towns. For many, the future has never looked so uncertain. The human cost is impossible to ignore. The shockwaves aren't limited to border towns, they're shaking entire states. Plummeting sales tax revenue is forcing lawmakers to consider painful cuts to schools, roads, and social programs. Commercial real estate vacancies are soaring, driving down property values and shrinking the tax base. Homeowners face a softening market, with some forced to sell after losing jobs. Politically, governors and state representatives are pressuring Washington to resolve the dispute, forming bipartisan coalitions and demanding action. The crisis is now a national issue, threatening to reshape future elections. Cross-border supply chains are also at risk, as Canadian firms seek non-US partners. The long-term threat, a weakened industrial base in the Midwest and Northeast. The stakes have never been higher for these 10 states. Economists warn this crisis exposes the dangers of deep interdependence. Dr. Evelyn Reed of the Brookings Institution says border states built their economies on the assumption of eternal friendship. Now, they're paying the price. Dr. Marcus Thorne calls the boycott a new kind of soft power, a people-driven economic sanction, more potent than official policy. The Canadian government didn't need to act. Public sentiment did the work. The real damage, experts say, is to trust. Even if the US reversed its policy, Canadian consumers have found alternatives and invested at home. It could take years or a generation to rebuild the relationship. The US administration underestimated the power of national identity and public opinion. Now, it faces a dilemma: reverse course and appear weak, or stay the course and prolong the pain. The crisis is a self-made trap with no easy exit. The lesson: economic ties are only as strong as the trust that binds them. Once broken, that trust is hard to restore. North of the border, the mood is strikingly different. In places like Niagara-on-the-Lake, Canadians are embracing the Buy Canadian movement, supporting local farmers and businesses. The boycott has sparked a mini boom in Canadian border towns, with billions redirected into the domestic economy. Local tourism is thriving and small businesses are flourishing. For many, the US policy backfired. What was meant as punishment became an unexpected gift. Still, some Canadian businesses miss American tourists, and many Canadians feel sadness over the soured relationship. University student Liam in Vancouver says, "We're not anti-American, we just want respect. Canadians want a relationship based on mutual respect, not resentment. Until that happens, they're keeping their money at home." The boycott is a principled stand, not an act of malice. For Canadians, it's about dignity and self-determination. The message respect must go both ways. As of July 11, 2025, the silent border stands as a warning. Economic devastation in 10 US states is deepening, the result of a political miscalculation. The Secure American Borders and Fair Trade Act must be revisited, but repealing the fee alone won't heal the wounds. The damage is about more than money. It's about respect and trust. Rebuilding will require more than policy change. It will take community outreach and renewed dialogue. American towns must reconnect with their Canadian neighbors as partners, not just customers. The lesson is clear. Public sentiment is powerful and trust is fragile. The empty parking lots are a daily reminder of what's been lost. The challenge now is to reopen not just the stores, but the relationship itself. The prosperity of millions depends on it.